Alessandra. Welcome to Wear Your Crown. I'm so excited. You are my first official guest. It feels like so surreal that I'm even saying that out loud because if you guys listen to my intro episode, Alessandra is actually the cousin that I refer to about having this conversation and starting the podcast. So it just feels fitting and right that you would be the first guest to chat and talk a little bit more. I now live so far away from Alessandra. We grew up living an
hmm
hour apart and would spend summers together and holidays and would always travel together. And I feel like now, since we're just so much older and you live in Indiana and I'm in California, we just
hmm
don't ever get to see each other as much, even though we
hmm
did have our little summer road trip, which was fun. So I'm so glad I get to see your face and talk to you. And you always have given me so much wisdom and just encouragement in life. And so I know your story is going to do that for other people. So I'm super excited to just dive right in.
Sweet. Yeah, me too. I'm so excited that you asked me to be part of this. So that means a lot.
My first question would be for people, obviously I know you, but for people who don't know you, who is Alessandra? Where are you at? What are you doing? Who are you?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Alessandra Haraguchi. A lot of people also know me as Sandra. I went to Huntington University, got my degree in missions and international development studies. I thought I was going to be a missionary, travel overseas, do the things, but I got into business and then got my MBA at Huntington University as well. So I literally went from undergrad to grad school right away. And it was through the MBA program that I started a business, and which my business is called Luz Creative, and it's Luz, Luz meaning light in Spanish. And I'm sure I'll talk more about that. But yeah, that's at least in terms of like what I do right now. Just really got into it with launching we're relaunching the company beginning of 2025, which is exciting. But yeah, I love playing soccer. What else do I do? I love reading. I love anything creative. I actually, the other day was on Instagram and I was just putting all of my organized reels together and it all had something with creative. So like creative hospitality, creative
Yeah.
projects, creative outfits. Like I just
Hmm.
love creativity.
That's awesome. Something that just came to my mind for those of you who don't know Alessandra, when we were younger, Alessandra was the one who would always get us together and coordinate some sort of group dance to show our parents or our grandparents.
Yes.
And we would use it as like the end all be all. We did one to Justin Bieber's Christmas album and it ate, in my opinion.
That video is so cringy.
Now looking back at it, I'm like, oh. But you were definitely always the one who had that creative drive to get
Mm-hmm.
us all doing things together and making silly
Oh,
dances and
yeah.
things like that. So I can definitely
Yeah.
see how
Oh,
that's like
you're
translated
right.
in your work life. I know, like you were
Yeah.
saying, you started out on this journey of wanting to do overseas missions and
Mm-hmm.
has kind of completely 180 that from
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing now. How do you see what you're doing now almost align with what you thought you would be doing as like 10-year-old Alessandra?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've always had such a huge heart for missions and overseas missions specifically. I've loved traveling and I think the more questions I started asking myself is like, what about that do I really love? And I think really just came down to people. I love
Yeah,
people and I love different cultures and I love seeing the body of Christ come together and serve. And I think our grandparents have really emphasized service for us. They
yeah.
modeled service. They've shown how to give back, and I just think that's something that you and I have been brought up with, and it's still a really important core value for mine today. And so I think I always knew I was going to do something with giving back or wanting to be in service in some way, but I always thought it would be overseas. But the really cool thing about it is that I felt the Lord call me to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And girl, I have tried leaving multiple times. As you know, multiple times. Like, I wish I could say it was just one time. No, multiple times. But I feel pretty confident that this is where the Lord has been leading me. And it's been really cool to see the Lord just develop this calling and vision on my life. And then really stepping into that and having confidence to step into that has been really cool to see that transition.
I think that's so interesting how you had this totally different idea of what you were going to be doing at this age and this stage of your life, but yet you can see it.
I literally have a world, or I had in college a world, is it tapestry? Tapestry? I never know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, but it was just of the world. And I would
Mhm.
look at it and be like, God, what country am I going to be in? Africa, Asia, or
Mhm.
continent, or am I going to be in Australia, Europe? Had
Mhm.
no idea. Nope, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so it was one of those things where like I was devastated. I truly
Mhm.
was devastated. I mean, I feel like that's the story of my life. I had a very set plan and set expectations, but then God just whoop, he just put all my expectations in this box and then was like, set the box aside and said, "Hey, I actually have something better for you." And it's just a
Yeah,
matter of me
that's good.
accepting that.
Mhm.
So,
That's awesome. I knew you love to travel. That's something that we've done together. We both kind of feel each other's fire a little bit in
oh
traveling, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, we do.
So what do you think has been something that you've learned from traveling? How has it
Mm,
influenced your creativity and your work, specifically in Luz
mm,
and just in other
mhm.
areas that you create?
Yeah. I I think because we've had the gift of traveling at a very young age. For those of you that don't know, Alana and I went to Jamaica when we were like 4 years old, 5 years old. You were probably
Yeah.
younger. Actually, I
Yeah.
think you were traveling even younger than that.
Oh, in
Um,
diapers, for
in
sure.
in diapers, and so and been very blessed with those experiences. And I think the gift of traveling really opens your eyes to see the world. And we saw poverty at a pretty young age, I would say. And when you see poverty at a young age, it's one of those things where I don't know, I feel like I've always just had a lot of compassion and care for people. And I think specifically because I've seen that, and I've always wanted to do something with that, like combating poverty in some way, or being able to, like, I don't know, give back in a way. And maybe that goes back to the service, but that's just like such a huge part of who I am, but then also like a part of my business is,
Yeah.
wanting to partner with these different ministries and wanting to show people, hey, this is what's out there. You can be a part of this too. So,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of how it influenced my creativity, the world is so big. And sometimes,
Mm,
like, when you don't travel and when you don't step outside your comfort zone, it can be really hard to actually think of like creative ideas, or because the world is so creative and God made so many unique individuals with all these different cultures and foods and people and languages, and there's just so much diversity and beauty in that it like fuels my creative bucket, just because it's so
yeah.
cool learning from others. And I feel like that's why, like, part of my logo for my business was really intentional in making sure it was diverse. I didn't want it to be the same digital media classic logo. Like, and not to
Yeah.
say those are still great, but I think for
Mhm.
because of one of my core beliefs and values is diversity, and I wanted so badly to represent it in a beautiful way. And that's why the light bulb in my logo, it's a Talavera art style, which is a
Mm.
Mexican Spanish art style. Um, and yeah, just thought it would be really unique and special to show.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. For those of you who haven't heard about Luz Creative, you definitely need to go look at everything because I was there
Hmm.
when you got your marketing materials and your brand
Hmm.
packet from your graphic designer, and it's so cool.
Hmm.
It's definitely very inviting and
Hmm.
welcoming and very colorful too. I think I am very
Thanks.
guilty of wearing beige and black and white only. So I think your logo taps into a colorful side of creativity as well in a
Mm.
world that's kind of done super modern stuff. So
Yeah.
also, um a question I had for you was where's your favorite place you've traveled? I think I've
Mm.
learned so much from you going out and traveling and
Hmm.
just seeing different places that you don't think about going to. So where's the favorite place like been and what's
Sure.
some memories you have
Mm.
from that trip?
Mm. There are two places that come to mind. Probably one of my favorite countries is Peru. So I went on a
Mm,
mission trip to Peru, and my family is Peruvian. or at least
Hmm.
on my dad's side, they're Japanese and Peruvian. And so, because my grandpa's from there, there's just something really special and unique about your family being from a different country and the heritage and where you've grown up. And
Yeah.
so, when I got to see Peru, I got to see other people that looked like me. And that was so cool. And especially because there's such a huge Japanese influence in Peru. And so you can see both of like the Latinx side, but then you also see like the Asian side, and it's like it's so cool. It's beautiful. So that's one of my favorite countries, just because my family's from there. But then one of my other favorite countries was when I went to Guatemala, and that was my first mission trip that I'd gone on. And actually, the name of my business comes from a story from that very specific mission trip. We were staying at an orphanage, and they were specifically, helping kids who had AIDS, and they kind of had like a not a foster care system, but
Hmm.
host parents where they would take in the children because their parents didn't want them. Anyway, while we were there, we were kind of helping put on a VBS for the families, and actually, a lot of times the moms would come and bring their kids to do the crafts because they like to also participate in the crafts. And so one of the moms gave her baby to me to hold while they were going to participate in the crafts. And it was so cool because here I am holding this like sweet little baby girl. I mean, she looked like she was maybe 4 or 5 months old, just the sweetest little thing, dressed in yellow. Her name was Luce. And it was just so sweet because she was just big smiles all over. I actually have
Hmm.
a picture of her still to this day. But I did notice something on her face like didn't look right, and she didn't have any pores like in her skin. Like, yeah, it was super weird. And I remember going to find somebody and being like, hey, like, is everything okay with this baby? And they said that she was born with a rare skin disease. And I don't know what that disease is called, but
Hmm.
they said that she's most likely not going to make it. And
Oh, wow.
I had never like held, a form of life. Like I'd never held somebody that like wasn't gonna make it before, and it just was so surreal. And in that moment, I was so confident. I felt the Lord tell me, it doesn't matter how long you have to live, and it doesn't matter how old you are, but that you can always be a light in somebody's life. And
Oh,
I didn't
that's
even
good.
know at that point that Luz meant light in Spanish. That was just her name. I had no
Hmm.
idea. And I was like, wow, if I ever started a ministry, I would name it after her. And that's why I named my company Loose, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're literally trying to help create more light for people through communities with social media. And so, yeah,
That's
that's just something really important.
so cool. Let's talk about Luz. I have been super excited watching this all kind of
Mm,
unfold and transform from just an
mm,
idea you had over FaceTime to a full
mm,
fledged
mhm,
company with business trips and
mhm,
interns. I'm so proud of you and all the things that you've been
mm.
doing. And
Thanks,
I
Alana.
think you have such a creative mind in that, even just from our own keeping up with the cousins vlogs that we do on holidays. And I know that even through that, though, there is so much that goes into starting a business. And I was
Mhm,
just wondering, is there
mhm,
anything that you had any moments of doubt, or what was
mhm,
kind of the biggest challenge in launching that business? Because it's been about 2 years, right? Or
mhm.
since Lose? Three?
Yep, we're going on year three.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So
year
two
three.
years in the making on year three.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned along the way? Is there moments you ever
Mm,
had doubt or
yeah.
struggles in
Mm,
building what you have today with Lose?
totally. Oh my goodness. Yes. It's crazy because, yeah, looking back 2 years ago, well, today I spoke to a college class about my business,
That's
which
awesome.
was so cool. And I got to share that same story with them and kind of like why I started it, how it is today. And I had a girl ask that very similar question, what you just asked. And I think for me, you know, it started out of a passion and a very clear vision from the Lord to do this, but I didn't know what that looked like per se. And
Mm,
I think for me, it was a matter of, really sticking to the vision and just making sure like this was from God. Like there were multiple times where I was like, are you sure this is from you, Lord? Is this, like if this is not from you, close every door, like close it. So it's so clear, but doors just kept opening up.
Mm,
And I started it, beginning of 2023. I had a team. My ex-boyfriend was a part of that, and so
mhm.
great guy and everything. And
Yeah.
it just didn't work out. And I think for me, because I was so emotionally invested like into that relationship, and then for him to like join the business, it was really hard.
Mm,
And again, no shame on him by any means. But naturally when you work with people, you grow together as a team, and so it like for me, I just needed to take a break. There were just some unexpected things that had happened, and not only that, but just like other things that had happened that year that I wasn't expecting. And so I had just really gone through a darker season in my life. And I
mhm.
was 25 at the time. And so as I was trying to discern, like, Lord, are you sure this is from you? Because if so, you're going to have to sustain it. Like, I don't know what to do. And then, I would bring on different people and it just wasn't the right fit. And, just really trying to discern, like, God, is this even from you? But then it was actually through the failing that I figured it out. And in our MBA business classes, they literally kept saying to us, the best business leaders, or really the best leaders, are the ones that know how to fail the fastest. Because one, you have
Mm,
to have the humility, to admit that you failed. Second of
yeah.
all, you have to have the perseverance to keep going. And third of all, you have to be brave and you have to actually
Mm,
try. Because,
yeah.
in order to fail, you actually have to try first. And
Mhm.
I'm so thankful that God gave me that quote, because that really has always just like stuck with me. And so for me, it was like, okay, Lord, like I asked that you would, just really like clarify things. And like, and one time I remember very specifically, there was a moment where I was like, I'm going to give up on this business. Like,
Mm,
I don't know if this is from you, God, because, at the time I was in a different job and like things just weren't working out, and like I wasn't making any money, all the things. And it got to the point where I remember this day so specifically. My old youth pastor from high school literally came to come visit me in my former job that I'd had. And it was so cool because like, wow, this guy, how kind of him to like come and just like support me. He's about like 30 minutes away like from my job, and when he came, I'll never forget, he told me, because I was kind of telling him like what was going on, and he was like
yeah,
something
that's
like that, or
good.
like, don't you doubt in the dark what God told you in the light. Oh, but I think because of that quote, that just like, yeah, that really just confirmed, okay, Lord, I remember what you told me, and I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, that's so good. What have you done in those seasons of doubt? Because I think a lot of times when people start something, we don't see a boom in it right away. You know, what you might see online of like it grew to six figures overnight and
Mm-hmm.
10,000 viewers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do in that space to kind of help you get out of that rut outside of your
Mm-hmm.
conversation that you had with the person who came to visit you?
Honestly, it's the Lord. Like,
Yeah.
there's no other way. And I think, too, also people's personalities. Like, I think in this world, or at least like for me specifically, like you kind of have to be a little insane, or maybe not a little insane, but like you kind of have to be like, no, I'm not going to give up. you
Yeah.
know? And I just think, like, I'm so thankful I had parents who kind of helped me, like, in that mentality. It's like, no, you don't give up. You don't quit. You can retire, but you can't quit, you
Yeah.
know?
Uh-huh.
And so, and I think we had an amazing grandfather who showed us that same thing. And even, like, some of the, again, when I was studying a lot of the, different business leaders, it took the founder of Amazon 7 years before he got to the green. Literally
Yeah.
7 years. Like, imagine working at something so long for 7 years until you finally start to see a little bit like increase. Like, that's why I say
Mhm.
you kind of have to be a little insane to be like, and I think it's, you can't doubt the vision that God has for you. It just might look a little different than maybe like what you expected, but it's, I think if you don't have that super clear vision that's like not from the Lord, then I think it makes it that much harder. But when you have that, solidified vision from the Lord, it's like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can. I'll do my part and, work at this, Lord, but then just trust Jesus with the outcome.
I love hearing all of that because I just read the book Leaders Eat Last by
Mm,
Simon Sinek,
hmm
and it was talking so much about how even when like your leaders are in a hole, like it takes so much out of them to get out of that hole. So when you were saying
Mm,
Amazon took 7 years to go green. That's
mhm,
crazy. Because in my mind,
mhm,
I'm like, oh, it's Amazon. People were obsessed with it. But then I remember that picture of them in their garage, I think, and there's like a cardboard cutout on the back and
mhm,
it says Amazon.com. And so I think it's
mm,
just interesting to see when entrepreneurial people step into that light. A lot of the times
mhm,
people do kind of question
mm,
you or doubt. So
mm,
I think it's really great that you've had such a good head
mm,
on your shoulders that you haven't
mm,
let outside noise affect you and what you're doing daily. I wanted to know if we went back in time
mhm,
3.5, 4 years ago, is there
mhm,
anything that you, as you would have been what, 22 years old? No,
mhm,
23?
mhm.
Is there
Wow.
anything you wouldn't believe that you're doing right now about yourself?
Starting a business. Definitely.
Really?
I was not planning at all on starting a
Mhm.
business. I literally thought I was going to be a missionary. And even then, like I thought, okay, if not a missionary, I'll work for a nonprofit. And nope, that's not what I or that's not what the Lord had either. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I would say definitely that. I knew I was going to do something with vlogging. I've always loved storytelling, but I just didn't know like what that looked like. And now that I get to do it here, it's been a blessing.
Can you talk a little bit about what you do with vlogging and storytelling with Luz Creative and just like on your own? I know you do
Yeah.
kind of both and, but just so people can know a little bit more about what you do in your business with Luz Creative.
Yeah, so I'm a Christian social media content creator, and specifically, our mission is again, we're trying to help create more light by illuminating the good news within communities through social media. And that looks like two different things for me personally. One, it looks like coming alongside ministries and doing the behind the scenes storytelling of what this ministry is like. And, my goal is to do that first through like Instagram Reels, which you can check us out. I don't know if you'll have show notes or not, but
Hmm.
yeah, you can always, yeah, tell your followers. And yeah, so we do that, and we get to just partner with different ministries, and literally, it's like a dream for me because I just get to go serve with ministries, and then I just get to document and just tell people, hey guys, check out where God is moving in the community. Check out what God's doing here. So I do that, and then on the other side, really how I make money is my event content creation. And that's where right now I just do weddings, but it's a newer thing, or at least newer in the sense within the last few years. And you've got your wedding photographer, you got your wedding videographer, but now you have your wedding social media content creator. And that person is solely in charge of capturing all the behind the scenes moments and being able to deliver the content back to you within 24, 48 hours. And it's all recorded with a really high quality iPhone, which is so fun. And I literally just get to, I'm kind of like the fun aunt. I get to go into weddings and I get to literally get everybody together, kind of like what you talked about, how when I was little, would get everyone together and
Yeah,
we would create something. And so, I get to create fun videos with the bride and do fun TikTok trends or Instagram reel trends with the bride. But then also get to, yeah, just document their entire wedding day and give it back to them within 24, 48 hours. So that's
that's
what I do.
I love wedding photography. Like I think it's so pretty, it's so cool, but I think
Mm-hmm.
there's something so personal about pictures coming from your phone or videos.
Mm,
It just
right.
feels more in the moment and
Yep.
authentic. I know it's not. Wedding photographers are great. I love wedding
Sure.
photographers. But I think
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do that because I was a part of like 4 weddings this past summer and I was
Mm-hmm.
the one who was taking pictures for people because there's so much
Mm,
going on and it's something that the bride and the groom shouldn't and don't have to think about usually on their wedding
right.
day that it's
Mm-hmm.
so nice to be able to kind of outsource that onto you guys so that they
Mm-hmm.
can just enjoy even more of their day and even the bridal party can kind of get to relax and
Mm-hmm.
chill and it's just kind of all in
Right.
your hands. So that's super cool. I was
Yeah.
wondering, how do you stay so creative and innovative in such a quick moving field? I feel like social media, there's
Mm-hmm.
TikTok trends that my siblings know. I've never even heard the word come out of
Mm-hmm.
their mouth ever. There was a new one like my Shayla or something, and I had
Uh-huh.
no idea. I thought they made up a nickname for Ollie,
No.
our dog.
That's so funny.
So
Yeah, I
I
don't
was
know.
just wondering, how do you stay up to date on trends? How do you keep being creative and innovative to have your brand stick out from other
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
social media marketing brands, and what kind of do you do behind the scenes just to keep up? Because it is a very fast moving field.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I do, and I'm a stickler about this, but I try really hard to have some kind of rest day or some kind of like Sabbath rest day.
Yeah.
And there are things that I like to do for fun creatively. I love bullet journaling. That's super fun and creative. I love making my own stuff, my own content for fun. I have to find restful ways when I'm like resting in the Lord, but then also doing something creative like with Him. It's really cool because, again, we have to be able to be filled up so that we can be poured out. And that's one of the ways that I find, at least like for me to rest, or even if it's reading or going on a walk, listening to a podcast. And I believe it's the Lord who gives us these creative ideas. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's like, I honestly, I don't really go into the mindset of like, okay, I have to stay like up to date on like the latest trends or like, I just think naturally because I'm always on social media or like I definitely have boundaries. But
Yeah.
like I genuinely like to look at what's happening, so then I'll just save things for like the future or like, oh, this is cool. Maybe I'll try this for the future. I think I naturally just kind of like store information already where it's
Mm.
not like I'm actively like, okay, what's the latest trend? And this is so bad, Alana, but like I didn't even know that TikTok was getting banned. Like, isn't
Well,
that
it's
so
back, so
terrible?
you're okay. It's back.
Oh,
But
okay. Good.
it only
Yeah,
got banned for like 12 hours and now it's back. So,
gotcha. Yes. Yeah, it was literally like or it was banned and came back, and I didn't even know. I didn't even know all that. So it's like,
that's
and
funny.
yeah, I guess it's one of those things where I haven't been like too concerned about it. Maybe I should in the future, but at least for now, I think I'm really just trying to be obedient to the Lord and where He has me going. But then, with that does come strategic planning and managing and trying to figure out the next step. I just haven't necessarily felt led to really step into that a whole bunch yet.
I was wondering too, what have you noticed with yourself personally about success and what that looks like?
Mm,
I'm sure we kind of talked about it a little bit with going green sometimes takes a lot longer than we think as
yeah.
entrepreneurs and business
Hmm.
owners and creatives. So, what do you think your personal definition of success has changed over time from starting Lose or just even
Mm-hmm.
from life?
So, my definition of success has always been obedience to the Lord. Truly, I feel like when I know I'm in the Lord's will and being obedient to Him, there's nothing greater than that for me. And it's interesting too. I hear a lot of different ideas that people have for my business, and they're all welcomed, and I want to hear them. And at the same time, I have to get really good at saying no because I have a very clear vision of where I feel like the Lord is leading me.
Yeah.
And so, with that, it's like, okay, Lord, where are you leading me next? And am I being obedient to you in this? Or where are you leading me in this way? And wanting to just always make sure that I'm giving God the glory and realizing that, like, okay, Lord, I tried it, I was obedient, and that to me, I feel so content in that. And it's weird too, because, like, yeah, my business isn't crazy big. It's not like I'm in the green, any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so content, like, with where I'm
Mm.
at because I truly believe I am doing the Lord's work and where He wants me to be right now. So,
Isn't that crazy how I personally, for such a long time, equated success with a monetary value
hmm.
of if I had X amount of dollars in my bank account or where I was making X amount weekly, I would be living a successful life. But I think, especially over
Mm-hmm.
this past year, I don't know if you can relate to this at all, but I've learned what success looks like in different areas of being able to have a slow morning or having the ability and the privilege to be able to work late nights because I don't have any other responsibilities that I have to take care of. And I think, especially at your age, it's so cool to see how much you've dove into Loose because I think a lot of the times when people are young, we think that you aren't able to go. You have to go into the field. You have to learn from other people instead of just going out and creating on your own and seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Loose isn't a seven-figure business or
Mm-hmm.
anything by any
Mm-hmm.
means. Yeah, it could
No.
be one day, but I think
Mm-hmm.
just that you're living so passionately in a area that you feel so called to is so cool. And I've heard you talk
Mm-hmm.
so much about your faith and what that means to you and how you uh, equate that in your business, which I think is so cool. Can you talk a little bit about your
Mm,
faith journey? Just kind of a quick
mm,
summary of how you came to know Christ and what that plays in
mhm.
your life today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, I grew up in a Christian household, but I felt like the Lord really revealed himself to me when I was 7 years old at the kitchen table, and my mom led me to the Lord, which is so cool. And I still remember that day very vividly. I don't know, do you remember the day that you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, or no?
Yes, but I think for me it was different because I did it at a young age. And
Hmm.
I remember that day, but what I really remember is my rededication in high
Mm,
school because I felt more in control of the decision. Like I made the decision consciously as a young child, don't get me wrong, but I think that I was able to almost reflect and look back and see God throughout my life up until that point
yeah,
too more. So
yeah.
I think I equate that day a lot
Mm-hmm.
more so. But I
That's
do. I
cool.
remember my young baptism at 8 years old at Crossroads
Oh,
Community Church in Goshen, Indiana.
ooh, shout out.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember all of that.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I think of it more in my high school
Hmm.
time,
That's cool.
seeing
Yeah.
him work throughout.
Yeah, yeah, I just remember that day like so clearly, and which what a blessing. And then as a new believer, you're just trying to just grow in your faith and through different ways. And actually, there were two devotional books that I remember doing, and the first devotional book was from our grandparents. I remember we got it for Christmas. I was in fifth grade. Yeah, and when I got my first devotional book, and I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, I love this." And then the second devotional book, your mom actually got me for my birthday, and I still have that devotional
Really?
book. And that also
Wow.
really helped me grow in my faith, at least in middle school. Yeah, you have to tell Aunt Tanya
I definitely
that.
will. That's so cool. I didn't know that,
Yeah,
but that's awesome.
and then I also, and again, like what a privilege, like from the Lord. He allowed me to have a mentor at a pretty young age in middle school. I had a girl, it was the youth pastor's wife, who would
Okay.
literally drive in the morning before school to a middle schooler's house, my house, pick me up and take me to Starbucks and teach me how to read the Bible before middle school. Like, isn't that
Wow.
insane? Like, she would do
That
that for me.
that is
And
so intentional.
yeah, but she taught me how to read the Bible, and that meant so much to me. I remember being late one time. Like I slept in and she was sitting at my house for like 30 minutes and then just drove away because clearly I didn't wake up in time. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's so crazy. I think it's too, even like thinking about the intentionality of that as an adult. I'm sure as a middle
Hmm.
schooler, it meant so much to you
Much.
to be like, oh, that she's coming and taking time out of her day. But like as an adult, to look back on that and be like, I'm sure she had errands to do, a job to
Hmm.
get to, like
Right.
just more responsibilities that come with being an adult, that she
Hmm.
took so much time to be so intentional in doing that.
Yeah,
And I feel like that
right.
is something that I'm sure has impacted you in
Yes.
your discipleship and being able to be
Mm-hmm.
intentional to other people. I didn't know, do you do any sort of discipleship for younger adults? What does that look like? I know you have some interns at Loose now, which is so cool. What does that look like as your leadership role to them?
Yeah, you're right. I love discipleship, and I think it's so cool to be able to do it in the business. And so with Luz Creative, I have a couple interns and they are phenomenal, Alana. I really believe like God is going to use the younger generation to really help me grow, not only personally, but then also in my business. And they're so creative and they understand the social media world. So I have two interns right now. I just love it, and I love pouring into them. I try to walk alongside them, helping them grow professionally and spiritually. And these two girls are their leaders. Like it's so clear that they're really good at leading. And so for me, like I remember all the leadership training that I've had, and I really want to come alongside them, like and invest in them because yes, we're here to do a job, but at the same time, like there's so much more than a job. And that's why I really find a lot of value in discipling them that way. Like right now I have one girl um who is working, actually I would say both of the girls that I'm helping to disciple, they're both stepping into spiritual disciplines and learning what are spiritual disciplines, how do we grow with spiritual disciplines. And so I think just being able to offer coaching with well-being, but then also spiritually and then also professionally. Because I've had some internship experiences where it was okay, it wasn't like life-changing, but it was one of those things where I'm like, it was very valuable. And
Yeah.
and I think a lot of college students find a lot of growth in that internship development phase.
Well, that's awesome. I can think of some college internships I've done, and just
Mm,
the difference in when you have a leader who genuinely cares about you and wants you to
mhm,
be your best self and pours their resources into you. That's one thing I genuinely did
mm,
love about my college experience, is that because it was
mhm,
a smaller university, I was able to
mm,
meet so many cool people and be in spaces and meet people that I should have had no business meeting. And it's really cool when a leader who has done the work and is, if
mhm.
we're ranking up levels to where you want to be as an adult,
Right,
brings you into that
right.
space and builds a table for you. And I know that's something we've talked about a lot, is
Mhm,
creating spaces and tables and seats,
mm. Yes,
hypothetically,
yes.
for people who
Mm,
don't have those resources. And so I was wondering, what does your, you spoke about your personal growth through your interns. What does your
mhm,
personal growth mean to you currently, and what are you striving for? What's something
mhm,
you personally look forward to getting to do day to day
mm.
outside of work?
Right now, it's interesting because, in a weird way, I love setting goals and I love accomplishing those goals. And so right now, being in soccer, and I play like just in a women's rec league, nothing crazy by any means, but
Hey, that's fun.
it's so fun, and it kind of like fuels my drive for competition. And so being able to compete in fun ways is really helpful for me and helps me grow. I think working out, I love working out and being active and healthy, and that's always been a huge value of mine. And even like lifting, and again, I don't lift anything crazy by any means, but it's it just feels good. Um, and and I think when we are taking care of our bodies, well, I would say it this way: stewardship is really important to me. And so that means stewarding our time, our talents, our treasures, and stewarding our bodies before the Lord. And so I think because of that, for me, I've just always tried to take care of myself. But I'll be honest, I haven't been the best at it. And I'm so thankful. Last week I was in Texas and I got to do a Magnify Missions workshop, which if you don't know about them, they're great, great organization. They're helping Christian entrepreneurs and missions minded people really just excel and thrive for the kingdom of God through sustainability and growth. And one of those things for me is I just realized how much accountability I need. Because when you are a business owner, I think a lot of people really do forget, especially the leader, they forget the health of the leader, which is something my boyfriend has consistently reaffirmed of like, hey, make sure you're healthy, make sure you're taking care of you, because that is so important. And when we're not doing things to take care of ourselves, like when we're not getting the sleep, when we're not drinking the water, when we're not doing, like, I just feel awful. We feel awful. And it's
Yeah.
like, how can I lead? How can I lead
Hmm.
others when I'm not even taking care of myself? And so stewardship also means, stewarding our time and taking care of ourselves. So, and again, haven't always been the
Yeah.
best at it, but have really appreciated the accountability and even if it's like getting a coach or a life coach or a business coach, I know you have a life coach, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. No, she is great. I think she also is so good at the balance of what does it look like, because I'm also very similar to you. I love my list.
Mhm,
I love checking things off
mhm,
my list, the little
mhm,
dopamine rush from that, and
mhm,
being go go go, but then it comes to a place of
mhm,
trying to keep up almost, where that you just get tired and exhausted. And I
mhm,
think there's such a balance in that is implemented more in your day to day
mhm,
than your overall well-being. And so I think one thing that she's really been helpful with the mindset
mhm,
is knowing that you can have these goals XYZ in place, but what do we do if it doesn't get finished and you need to rest? And what does
mhm,
that look like if you worked 8 hours and you don't have everything done? Is
mhm,
it life or death? Does it need to be moved to the next day? How do you balance that out? Because it's so easy to get trapped in the I have to go, 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 go to keep up of it. But she's been so consistent, and that if you
mhm,
go, 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 when are you going to stop? And even in like a biblical perspective, like God rested on Sunday, well, the seventh today. And so I think that that's something that I've personally been working a lot towards is how does it look like to be able to work and rest. And I think weirdly enough, when I do take time to rest, my work is 10 times more productive. I
Mhm.
am way more consistent in my work. You
Mhm.
can kind of see, like you were saying, the stewardship starts here and there and it kind of intertwines together. So I think it's been really cool to be able to be like, no, I'm working on this, this, and this, but I also
Mhm.
am going to take an hour to go read my book, or I'm going
Right.
to watch one episode of Netflix tonight, a
Mm.
walk,
Mhm.
whatever people do,
Mm.
to be
Yeah,
able
that's
to
right.
rest and
And
take time.
that's so good. And actually, I just this year, one of my goals this year was I scheduled a monthly retreat, a prayer retreat, 1 day a month for the year. And it literally is just to get away and to just spend time in prayer and solitude and really reflect on where the Lord is leading. Because again, to me, reflection is so important and being able to know like, hey, I can give God thanks and praise for these things. I can, learn from these things, but then here's what I'm going to take with me to the next thing. And
Yeah.
also make sure that I'm trying to figure out, where's the Lord leading me in what direction. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking about leading you,
mhm.
that actually has nothing to do with my next question. What is something that most people don't know about you? Most people, unless they know you personally, like I do, would see Luz Creative CEO and business owner. But what's something that people who are just connecting with you or have been following you on social media wouldn't necessarily know about Sandra?
Okay. So I didn't know if we were thinking like fun fact about you. So I was like, well, I can sing the Greek alphabet.
I remember you teaching me that song, and I have it
No, you
memorized
don't.
still.
You
Alpha,
do
beta,
too.
gamma, delta. I remember it. I don't know why. I distinctly
Amazing.
remembered that of all things, but I was like, that's so cool. I'm going to learn it because Alessandra knows it.
Mhm.
And I still remember it. So I think that's a really cool fun fact.
I'm trying to think. I'll think of something else, but that was like the first thought that came, that was the first thought that came to mind. Let's see. I mean, I just love creative projects. Yeah, painting. I just recently got a paint by numbers for Christmas.
Ooh.
It's so fun. It's of Paris, and I'm in love. I love
Ooh.
it, but it took me way too long to finish like 5% of one part of that painting. And I'm not done. I'm nowhere near done, but it's just fun to do. Um, yeah, I love doing creative things like that. I love reading and I love learning about people's stories so much. Autobiographies, biographies, podcasts, testimonies, sermons. I just love listening to people's stories. And then what else do I do? Really love coffee. Love coffee. Yes. When I was in Costa Rica, I had to go for my MBA business trip, and which was so fun. And we got to learn all about like the coffee culture there, and I was like, I was living the dream. It was so cool. So yeah, really love.
That's so
Alana
fun.
knows how much I love coffee.
I do. We have gone on very many excursions to get Sandra coffee, but and I am more of a tea matcha girl,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
I let you have your coffee, but I think
Same.
that is fun. It is like a fun little world in itself, but that's so cool.
I really love turtles, sea turtles. I saw my first one in the wild last year. It was amazing and it was so crazy. I think did I tell you a lot of that? When we were on vacation, just got to like go out and snorkel and just see the turtles. It was so cool. But then one time, there was the one time I went snorkeling by myself. Here I am just like looking at all the pretty fishes and I don't think I saw a turtle then, but as I'm like looking around, I was about to get my camera because I had like GoPro, and all of a sudden I just see this big, massive barracuda in the water, and I was like, I'm out. And I never swam
No,
so fast back to shore, Alana. And I was like, I'm never getting back in that water again. Like it was terrifying. And so,
that would ruin it for me, and I love the ocean, but I think that would be my last straw.
can you imagine? It was this big, like from
Oh,
Nemo. It was like the same
wow.
thing from Nemo. Yeah.
No, that like reminds me of when we went surfing in Santa Cruz, and
Yes.
I was like, if I see anything, and we saw a seal, and the first thing was like, oh my gosh, were there seals? There's sharks. But you were freaking out already, so I was like, I have to be calm. I have to be calm. But
Where there's
nobody else
seals,
was
there's
freaking out.
sharks.
Yeah, that's a saying people say is where there's seals, there's sharks.
I did not know that, Alana.
And remember, we saw the seal when we were surfing, and I was like, oh, but I was like,
I'm
I have
so
to be
glad you didn't
calm.
tell me that
I
because
was like,
I was just going off of what that
mm,
surfer dude, Mackay, what he was
yeah,
like, there are no sharks here. But again, it is the ocean, so I guess, how can you like
exactly.
promise that? You
But
can't.
but nobody
So,
else was freaking out, so I was like, you know,
hmm
maybe it's a time to not overthink and just
yeah.
literally ride the wave.
Yeah, catch the party wave.
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
Alana convinced me to go surfing. It was
I
awesome.
did.
It was awesome, and it was the best thing I've ever done, still to this day.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. No, that was, I mean, not on a deeper level, but I feel like that's just a perfect example of like when you want to take that leap, but you're so
hmm
scared to because you don't know what's on the other side. Like, it could have been horrible. I felt way too many times, but it was
hmm
still such a fun experience. And now you can say you were surfing in Santa Cruz, which
Oh,
is so
it was
fun
so
and
amazing.
so cool. But
Yeah.
I wanted to know one last question.
Yes.
Is there anything you would like the listeners to know about you, where to find you for Luz Creative and connect and learn a
hmm
little bit more about what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. My Loose Creative um, Instagram handle is Create More Loose, L-U-Z. And then if you want to follow more of the event content creation side, that's Events with Loose. Yeah, two different kind of platforms right there. You can keep up there and yeah, watch and see what the Lord does with that account. And they can always follow me on my personal Instagram account too, but I don't know. I don't post like a whole bunch there. I more so just post on like the business side of things. We're working on a website for the Events with Loose page, but that won't be done for like another month or so.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sandra. I've enjoyed our conversation
Yes.
and hearing more details about your story and some stuff I didn't even know. And I am so thankful that you wanted to join me on this first podcast
Oh my
of
gosh,
Wear Your
thank you,
Crown.
Alana. Yeah, that's so nice.
Of course. And I'm so excited to see what you do in this next year. And maybe we'll
Oh,
have you back for a
oh my
part
gosh.
two in a year and see what else you're up to. So thank
Dang.
you, Alessandra.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you were wearing your crown today.
Thanks, Alana. Thank you so much. I was gonna say thank you for taking a leap of faith. You've talked about this podcast for a while, and it was one of those things where you bounced a lot of ideas back and forth, but like you're doing it. Like when I got that email from you, I just like the first email of like, hey, welcome to Wear Your Crown podcast. Like I just was like, yes, like let's go, Alana. Like she's doing it. She is doing it.
Thank
So I'm
you.
excited to see what God is gonna do with your platform and grow your podcast. So thank you.